everyone. Welcome to Pikeville History Moments, where we talk about the history and heritage of Pikeville, Kentucky and the surrounding area. Today, we're talking about the early history of electric lighting in Pikeville. We'd like to start out by noting that our primary source for this video is an essay by local historian Frank Forsyth Sr. that was published by the Pike County Historical Society around 1972. Please be sure to stay around until the end to learn about how the early days of power generation in Pikeville resulted in quite an ordeal for an elevator installer. We have mentioned in an earlier video that the early 20th century was a time of rapid advancement for Pikeville. A partial list of what we now consider to be basic amenities that arrived shortly after 1900 include a public water system, paved streets, rail travel, medical facilities, and yes, electric power. To be sure, in its lack of electrical power, Pikeville was typical for the time. Although the first commercial power plant had been constructed by Thomas Edison on Pearl Street in Lower Manhattan in 1882, the availability of electricity took decades to spread around the country. In Kentucky, Lexington appears to have become electrified in the early 1890s. But in those days, power plants were local affairs, with each town having to have their own plant. The smaller towns across the country established plants around the same time as Pikeville, while the more rural areas between the towns often didn't have residential power until the 1930s or 40s. But back to our story in Pikeville. Mr. Forsyth notes that in those days, several local stores stayed open after regular business hours, and locals would sit around discussing a wide range of topics, including the betterment of the community. In Rutroff's jewelry store on Division Street, this included two young dentists, Joe Meade and Asbury Billy Reese, who had recently opened a modern, thriving dental practice in town. Billy Reese's undergraduate degree had been in mechanical engineering, so those jewelry store discussions turned into a feasibility study and then a design process. Doctors Meade and Reese founded the Pikeville Light and Power Company and began construction on their plant in 1904. This initial plant no longer stands but was located on what is today 178 2nd Street, near its intersection with Pike Street. The building that stands there today is currently occupied by Alternative Service Concepts. Meade and Reese's installation included two Skinner engines and two 250-volt DC generators operated by suitable boilers. These units were operated alternatively to ensure dependability. Of course, electrical service then looked nothing like what it does today. They only operated the plant from about dusk until bedtime, and there were only about 10 streetlights throughout the city. These were carbon arc lamps located at street intersections mounted atop of poles. Each pole included a rope and pulley allowing the lights to be serviced twice each week. These arc lights were globe enclosed and rated at 2,000 candle power and were much too bright to use inside a home. This was a dramatic improvement, as in prior years, the town made do with only 3 oil lamps located at long intervals along Main Street. For home lighting, a single 16 candle power carbon lamp was suspended from the ceiling, giving off about the same amount of light as a modern 15-watt incandescent bulb. Each customer's power bill was a flat 50 cents per month for each such light in the home. These replaced the earlier kerosene lamps that were dim, smoky, and odorous in comparison. In 1913, John Hopkins and some partners formed the Sandy Valley Light and Power Company. It's thought that Meade and Reese sold out to Sandy Valley around this time. As the city grew, the limits of direct current power began to show, and Sandy Valley, now under the ownership of Leftwich Stone, converted the plant to alternating current in 1916. But space was too limited for this new system to operate efficiently, and Sandy Valley built a new plant across the railroad tracks on Hellier Street. This plant is also gone today, but it stood near what is today a parking lot located next to Myers Towers and directly across Hambly Boulevard from the police station. It's thought that Stone sold the company to Consolidated Coal Company around this time, and he resigned in 1919. Consolidated was operating a power plant out of Jenkins that provided power as far away as Prestonsburg, Paintsville, and Van Leer. So, they may have had some larger plan for the Pikeville plant. However, they soon sold Sandy Valley Light and Power Company to a new company that had formed in Hazard during the same year. The new company was called Kentucky and West Virginia Power Company. Kentucky and West Virginia must not have valued the Pikeville plant though, because by 1925, the equipment in the plant was sold to the T.N. Huffman Company and relocated into their ice plant that was located on Bank Street. The Bank Street site is now occupied by the playground next to Model City Daycare. It's not known how long Huffman operated the plant, but the days of every town having their own power generation were ending. Kentucky and West Virginia sold to outside interests in 1922 and would later become part of American Electric Power and Kentucky Power, which has itself recently been sold pending regulatory approvals. And now, here's the story about the plight of the elevator installer. Not long after the Hellier Street plant was put into use, a freight elevator was being installed in Pikeville. The elevator operated using a 3-phase electric motor. The elevator installer completed this installation and returned to his out-of-town home for the weekend, but he was called back with a complaint. When he returned, he could not understand why his elevator controls now operated backwards. When he had left, pressing the up button made the elevator go up, but now it made the elevator go down. At a loss, he brought his troubles to the power company. For those that don't know, 3-phase AC motors have a rotating magnetic field that causes the rotor to spin in a specific direction. If the motor is running in the wrong direction, that means it is not in the correct phase sequence. The plant still operated 2 generators on an alternating basis, and, up until the elevator had been installed, they had never had a reason to be concerned about whether the 2 generators each produced power with the same phase sequence. The next day, the operators matched the phases of the generators in a matter of minutes. And so, patrons of the elevator could know which button to press to go the appropriate direction without having to know which generator was in operation. All in all, a much better arrangement for everyone. This week, we have a request for our viewers. Photographs of these power plants are extremely rare. If you have any or know where to find them, please comment below, post them to Facebook, and tag us at Pikeville City Tourism or email us at tourism@pikevilleky.gov. Thank you for watching Pikeville History Moments. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe, or click on the link to our website at visitpikeville.com. Don't forget to leave a comment and send us your pictures.